But I think this gun issue is just more identity politics as it's being played out.
There is a new walkout that is happening today, but it is different from other student walkouts. This one has to do with people walking out in favor of the Second Amendment, so they say.
Wait, what was this, or so you say about? Are you implying they are walking out for something else? Like, were they walking out in favor of school shootings? That seems unnecessarily catty.
The quote is, students at schools, according to USA Today, across the nation plan to walk out of their classrooms Wednesday to show their support for the Second Amendment. One of the people who put together the movement, Will Riley, he's an 18-year-old from New Mexico, said, I'm watching the news and I see they're saying, well, we have to do something about this. We have to enact some sort of gun control legislation because this is what the kids are asking for. And I'm thinking, I'm not asking for that. I look at my friends and I think they're not asking for that. Someone else who agrees, Zach Bell, says, it's a vital part of our Bill of Rights. I believe it's important. Without it, we wouldn't be the country that we are today. So they're walking out as a counter protest to the individuals who have been walking out, or I guess the huge groups across the country have been walking out.
Nice save. I want to say the individuals that have, the huge groups that have been walking out in favor of gun control. Yeah, nice save.
After the shooting in Parkland.
So there's also an article.
Wow, this is like their C team on this one. Damn.
From Will Riley that he wrote in there in the Carlsbad newspaper, Carlsbad, New Mexico, where he says that millennials are more conservative about guns and want to have guns than their parents were. That's what he gave, like 66% of millennials. This is a really weird number.
66%, this really weird number. 2/3, really weird. Well, I can only imagine you're implying that he made it up, right?
I will say that I think it's fantastic that young adults, the youth of America, currently has the wherewithal and the guts and the initiative to galvanize and mobilize and do these things. That's impressive, yes. But I think it's a little bit lost on this Will Riley guy because they're taking a stand so people aren't dying. It's not that we're saying you can't have guns. We just want people to die unnecessarily at the hands of guns.
At the hands of guns. These guns roaming the streets, murdering people, forming criminal gangs, committing drive-bys. These terrible, terrible guns. No. You know what? No. I have more to say on that. That is very typical of a underlying value in the left's worldview, is the materialism, the materialist construction of human behavior. The idea that people's behavior is determined by the tools around them. The essential of Marx's reasoning behind the separation between the bourgeois and the proletariat. And it's the same thing here. If the guns are killing people, if people just didn't come into contact with the gun, they would never be influenced to commit the crime. It's not like they'd use a bat or a rock or a knife or anything like that. It's not a realistic view of human nature.
And furthermore, he says that the Parkland kids have now a limited supply of funds and resources from all these people that are supporting them, so that really rubbed him the wrong way.
Yeah, maybe because lots of those funds come from far left activists, George Soros, but why would the Young Turks care about people getting funded by Democratic activists, right? That's right in your wheelhouse.
But I think in the same vein that the whole conversation's missed on adults who have an issue with the Parkland kids is the same way that this guy's missing the point too. And that's what I got from reading his article in the paper.
Yeah.
No, I think he got the point perfectly well.
I support their right to walk out and to have whatever demonstration they want to have. It's like they're doing it for 16 minutes. I tried to find what was the significance of 16 minutes when the length of the walkout for the Parkland, for the March for Our Lives was 17 minutes I think it was 17.
Shouldn't you know how long it was? Like, isn't it kind of your job? They didn't just spring the story on you. Did you do any prep at all for the show, or are you just kind of winging it?
It corresponded to the number of people killed, and it was like that amount of thoughtfulness surrounding very,
Well, they wanted to be thoughtful, but not quite as thoughtful as
Yeah,
the
right.
other protest.
So weird.
I think that we all, obviously, all of us on this panel support their right and their activism associated with this walkout. I wish that these kids, I think Jason said something very important, which is that there was an imperative that those other kids felt, the Parkland kids felt, that people are being slaughtered and being slaughtered in such big numbers so frequently.
Actually, no, not really. School shootings are extraordinarily rare. Why is fear of them driving policy? The statistical likelihood of any given public school student being killed by a gun in school on any given day since 1999 was roughly 1 in 614 million. And since the 1990s, shootings at schools have been getting less common. So no, liar, liar, liar.
That something had to be screamed out, and this was a way to do it. That they're walking out for the Constitution and protection of something that they care about. This matters. I wish there was this degree of activism associated with First Amendment rights.
Oh, you mean like the activism coming from the right, and then the left wing shows up and shuts down those free speech rallies, calling them hate rallies? You mean that kind of activism for the First Amendment?
You know, I mean, if this is the beginning of that, then I'm really excited.
No, you wouldn't be.
But I think this gun issue is just more identity politics as it's being played out.
What? 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 What?
This is absolutely absurd. Are you projecting? You're just throwing out buzzwords. What in the do you mean it's identity politics and that it's white people, white men that like their guns? Like, what is that even supposed to mean?
The last thing I'll say is that Parkland protest was associated with modifying the legislation. It's not wiping away the Second Amendment in the United States of guns.
Yes, it is. You're not fooling anyone.
It is about modifying and responsibly altering
Our rights. Altering our rights? No, sorry, that doesn't work.
the gun legislation in this country, state by state if necessary.
Yeah, we'll see. And a lot of, when you ask the Parkland kids to kind of elaborate on their aims, a lot of them are like, just fulfill the promises you've already made.
Not promises, democratic policy positions. It's a very different thing.
Right.
It's like Second Amendment, okay, good, I support it.
When they give us that inch, that bump stock ban, we will take a mile.
You know, no one believes it when the left says they support the Second Amendment. And you know why? Because papers like the New York Times print op-eds called Repeal the Second Amendment. And anyone who's curious about the political, less real view of the Second Amendment only has to look at the Supreme Court case, D.C. versus Heller. We can look at the dissenting opinions that ruled against the right to bear arms. The Stevens dissent seems to rest on four main points of disagreement: that the founders would have made the individual right aspect of the Second Amendment express if that was what was intended, that the militia preamble and exact phrase "to keep and bear arms" demands the conclusion that the Second Amendment touches on state militia service only. The dissent concludes, the court would have us believe that over 200 years ago, the framers made a choice to limit the tools available to elected officials wishing to regulate civilian use of weapons. I could not possibly conclude that the framers made this choice. This is so wrong. The whole point of the Constitution itself was to limit the government's power. What are you talking about? The framers made exactly the choice to limit the tools available to officials in all parts of American life. That was the point. And more importantly, back as far as antiquity, the Greeks and the Romans understood militia to mean the civilians who would be called upon to defend their homeland. It was the Minutemen in the colonies who had a rifle hanging over their fireplace. That's what the militia means. And we can look at one of the delegates who helped frame the Constitution, George Mason. I ask, who are the militia? They consist now of the whole people, except a few public officers. Under the president government, all ranks of people are subject to militia duty. It was understood that you were in the militia if you were an individual. And by the way, just in case you're one of those, the Second Amendment's for slavery thing, here's a couple quotes from the same man on that issue. And amusingly, we can look at this statement was actually said in open court. The Breyer dissent goes on to conclude, there simply is no untouchable constitutional right guaranteed by the Second Amendment to keep loaded handguns in the house in crime-ridden urban areas. So, yeah, black people in a poor neighborhood, you have no right to have a gun. We're going to take that from you. Yeah. You're talking about you want to disarm poor black people. Does that really look good to anyone?
In the Bill of Rights, but let's fulfill the background check promises and go back to things we've already done, like assault weapons bans.
Yeah, so just roll over for the left and give in more of our rights. I mean, the assault weapons ban going away was a good thing. That was a victory for the Second Amendment, and we should just go back because you want us to roll over for the Democrats. No, thank you. I think we'll pass on that. Glad to see some pro Second Amendment walk out, try to do their best to undermine it, but Young Turks will be the Young Turks. We are the Republic's walls, and they have to come and take it.